So, hello everyone, and this is our first of our sibling interviews, and this is David, the youngest of our family.
Hello.
And you'll notice that my mom's not in this interview. She is going to jump on towards the end to ask a fun question, so stay tuned for that. But we felt like, yeah, David doesn't know what question that my mom's going to ask him, so it'll be fun. But yeah, the reason why I'm going to be doing the interview instead of my mom is that just some of the questions were just more fitting for me to be asking than my mom. So that's why we decided that. So David can give a little introduction on who you are, where you work, where you went to school, just kind of the basic questions.
Okay. So my name is David. I'm the youngest of the Rose family. I work currently for a company called Scorpion. I do internet marketing with them. I went to school at California State University, Channel Islands, and graduated with a degree in business, and yeah.
Okay. And you're married?
Yeah, no, I am married. I have a beautiful wife, Belen. She's here, but not in the shop right now.
And you've been married for 2 years, right?
Coming up on 2 years, actually, in July this year, so yeah, a big 2 years.
All right, so we're just going to launch into some of these questions. So the first one is, since we already mentioned work, what you do for a living, what are some things that mom and dad encouraged you with growing up that helped you develop a good work ethic?
Well, I think they were never afraid to delegate chores and things like that. So we grew up doing a lot of dishes and cleaning around the house, which was good. And then also, like, they really instilled in us at a young age to take pride in your work and actually do a good job, which is something that I think is lacking in, a lot out there today. Another thing too that I was going to mention is that my dad, I remember, growing up, he encouraged us to start working while we were in high school and to at least get a job and to start, dipping our feet in the water there. So he encouraged us to work construction. We had a few local contractors up in the mountains that we would work for. But I remember on the first day that I was working construction, my dad is driving me up to drop me off, and he told me to never let them see me sit down on the job. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. But it just turned into this nagging thing that was always in the back of my head. Like, don't let them see you sit down on the job. And I'm just like, I can't sit down ever. But no, really, I mean, what it served to do though was just kind of foster a sense of diligence and productivity. And, when you're at work, you're working. You're not like being lazy. You're not taking every opportunity to just sit down and rest and relax or something like that, especially when you're working a hard job like construction. In the mountains in the winter, in the summer, and sweating, and yeah, it was pretty exhausting. But at the same time, I think it helped to give a good reputation to the work ethic for me and my siblings.
I think Dad modeled that too.
Everywhere. Yeah, no, definitely, and that's something like seeing my dad growing up too, and the type of worker that he was, and even taking on jobs that weren't as desirable. Stuff that you wouldn't really expect a man of his stature or his experience and everything to really be doing. Like, he would take it on like it's nothing, and he would do it, and he would do it well. And having that influence and that example in my life growing up was huge, because that's something that still encourages me.
And that kind of segues into how did mom and dad encourage you as a young man to be a man and to act like a man and encourage that?
They definitely did encourage that growing up. Something, I remember growing up a lot was the fact that we were always out doing things. Like, they encouraged us to play sports, to be outdoors, to go on hikes, to go backpacking. We had all sorts of things that we were doing, like active activities that we were doing constantly over the years growing up. So having that kind of background, and then also like my dad, I remember growing up, like, he and the other dads in the church were very concerned about giving a good example and a good foundation to the young men that they were raising. And they would even show us how to fix cars or how to do certain things like manly type chores, stuff that a lot of kids don't really get the training for, I guess, growing up. So that was very helpful. And yeah, I think that, and then also just encouraging us to, like, in the right directions, in terms of school, in terms of work, the type of work that we were doing, really pushing us to excel in certain ways, all kind of came together.
what boundaries did mom and dad set that, looking back today, you realize that they were helpful rules and guidelines that they set for our home?
Yeah, there were certain things growing up that to me didn't seem that out of the ordinary. I mean, like comparing our family to others, you would see certain things like we didn't have a television subscription or like cable or anything like that in the house. For the majority of my childhood and the early teen years, we didn't even have any sort of like gaming consoles or anything. We did have like a TV monitor and we would watch videos and stuff every once in a while, but making that choice to kind of like forego the fun there and just the entertainment in pursuit of better things and being outdoors and being active and learning things, exploring. Like when I look back in my childhood, I'm not looking back and being like, oh, I really treasure the time I spent indoors doing nothing, you know, like just mindlessly being entertained. It's kind of more like I really enjoy the time that I spent outdoors, climbing trees, being on a trampoline, like actually, you know, engaging and interacting with other kids and the world. And that's something that a lot of people, like when I talk to people nowadays, it's strange to me, like trying to relate that to them, because so many people I talk to are just like, wow, that sounds so awesome. Like I wish, you know, my childhood was like that. And it's kind of, they have more to say about what TV shows they were into growing up or like things like that, as much as I do looking back on it. Because like growing up, it's kind of like, oh, like why can't we have a PlayStation or something? Like, you know, all my friends have those, what's the problem there? And it's like, they're fun. But looking back, it's kind of like, I enjoy not having that sort of stuff and actually making real memories and being outdoors and stuff. Our parents were very concerned about the type of content that they allowed inside the house, the types of movies that we were allowed to watch, the types of music that we could listen to, even stuff that seemed on the surface to be benign or harmless. Like if you're filling your life and your mind and your heart with that sort of stuff, and this is something I have to be careful with, even nowadays when, you know, as an adult, I have, you know, free reign over my decisions. Like I need to be careful what kind of stuff I'm digesting or taking into my heart, into my mind and things, because that's something that really does have a big effect on you, whether you realize it or not. So, I mean, it seemed like a hassle at the time to like, oh, I like this new band. And then like my parents would print out all the lyrics to their songs and be like, have you like seen this line? Like, so, but looking back, I mean, I see the purpose behind that. And if anything, it did serve to give me better discernment, I feel like, in the types of stuff that I listen to and watch.
Good thoughts, David. Okay, what is something that your dad said that influenced and guides you even today? So I was trying to think of answers to this, and I didn't really come up with like a list of quotes necessarily, because I mean there's a lot that my dad said to me to train me and to guide me and educate me growing up, but nothing really stood out in the form of like, oh, like a little soundbite or something that he would always say. But what I will say, it's not what he said, it's more what he did and the types of decisions that he made and the integrity that he had. Because my dad was very much a doer of the word. He was someone who really practiced what he preached, and seeing him lead by that example where, like, especially as the son of a pastor growing up, you see him every Sunday preaching, and you see him preaching and expounding on the Word of God, but actually seeing that in practice in the home in a very tangible way, and the standards that they set for our own household and things, that to me has left a lasting impact. Another thing too, I mean, he was not just a man of his word when it comes to integrity, but he was a man of the word, in that he would always base his decisions, his standards, his rules, everything, you know, governing his household on the Word of God. And that's something that, like, to me, even still, like today when I'm like encountering difficult situations or I don't know, just ambiguity in life, it's something that I can always come back to as the anchor, you know, like, what does God have to say about this? So there's that. And then also too, I mean, another lasting impact was just the fact that my parents really made their family their primary ministry. My dad was a pastor. He was involved in so many things, you know, in the church in terms of community outreach and everything. But at the end of the day, it all came back to, you know, the family, the house, and being the leaders of that house for my mom and dad. That's, to me, has left I mean, when you see the effect that that's had, not just on me, but on my siblings and the lives that, you know, or the places that we are in life right now, like that's a really a true testament to
to raising up a child in the way that they should be.
Yeah, and for those of you watching on our YouTube channel who maybe don't know some of the background why that question is particularly meaningful to us is that our dad did pass away a little over a year ago unexpectedly, so we're just really valuing all of that even more as we think back on the legacy he left us and the man he was and how we want to imitate so many things about him. So, okay, so on a more fun note, what was it like being the youngest of 7 kids?
Yeah, where to begin? No, for me, I mean, I get that question a lot because whenever I tell someone I'm the youngest of 7 kids, they're like, that's so weird. But to me, it's the most normal thing in the world because I have nothing to compare it to. So I don't really know kind of, it was great. You know, I prefer that to being an only child or something. But I can definitely say it was a lot of fun growing up, and it still is a lot of fun having, 6 other siblings that I can, grow with and relate to and it just celebrate and enjoy life with and walk with God. Like, there's so much there that I feel like, I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but it's something that I really treasure. The fact and I count it like one of God's major blessings in my life was that he allowed me to have a big family like that. And like, yes, I'm thankful because I'm the youngest of 7 kids. So if there was not a big family, I wouldn't even be here. But no, but it's something that I really do treasure. And it's something, that I really enjoyed growing up.
So another question is, what did you enjoy being homeschooled? And would you homeschool your kids someday? Yeah, however you want to answer that.
Yes and yes. I really enjoyed it. It's something that I don't know, again, I don't really have the ability to compare it to an actual experience I had being public schooled or something, for instance. But I think growing up being homeschooled for me allowed me to really learn at my own pace and not be kind of just artificially put in a classroom where you're having to, learn with everyone else at the same exact pace, even though some people are faster or slower and things like that. I think
you graduated early from high school.
Yeah,
a year early.
Speaking of, I graduated when I was 17 from high school, so that's another year that I maybe would have wasted just before entering college and things like that. So I think for one, it was a really good experience, and it's something that still whenever someone asks me, oh, where'd you go to high school, or whenever it comes up and I'm like, I was homeschooled, and they're like, oh, you're one of those types. I feel like it still kind of has it has a stigma because it makes you think of some kid who's been never left the house and never seen another human being in his life or something. But for me, growing up with such a big family with a really large friend group outside of the house, at my dad's church, for instance, with other homeschool families, I really wasn't socially deprived in any way. So I think it was a really good experience. It set me up in a good way entering college and even later on, because it really taught me independence and the ability to kind of teach myself certain concepts or to teach myself something, which is a really good skill to have. So I would definitely not be against the idea of homeschooling my kids. I think it's something I haven't decided one way or another. It really depends on the circumstances and what options there are when I reach that point, if I'm making that decision with my wife, but it's something that I would be very open to.
Okay.
David, I have a surprise question for you.
I'm so worried right now.
Would you like to tell our subscribers and watchers how you put your mom on the terrorist watch list?
Really? That's the punt? Oh my gosh. So true story. When I was traveling, it was actually the first time I'd ever flown on an airplane before. First trip I'd ever taken like that. It was when my sister Christy was going to Bob Jones on the East Coast, and my mom and I flew out there to visit her for about a week. And, going to this strange new world like the East Coast, and who knows what's out there. And I gotta protect my mom and be the man here. So I brought along this giant tactical knife that one of my brothers had given me.
Well, tell them
And-
why he gave it to you, because the hiking and the...
Yeah, because we grew up in the mountains, so like stuff like that, like backpacking or hiking and things like that, it's a useful tool. But anyways, I brought it along on the trip. Who knows why? I mean, it was just something that I did at the time, and made it there, no issues, whatever. On the way back though, pack and repack my suitcase to get it under the weight limit, and I was kind of having trouble doing that. So my mom was like, "Hey, why don't you just put some of your stuff in my checked luggage?" And I was like, "Okay." So the only problem being that my mom's checked bag and her carry-on bag looked identical. Only one was like slightly smaller than the other one. And I was like, oh, I'll just put some things in there. And I was like, I don't need to carry this knife in my checked luggage. So like I put it like on top of my my mom's stuff in her checked bag. So we get to the airport and I'm just like, business as usual. Nothing's wrong, of course. We're, my mom and me traveling the lowest threat possible when it comes to airport security. Our bags are going through the security scanners and we're watching them, and then the thing just kind of stopped and we're just kind of like, huh. And like the person just kind of looking at the screen, and then like they called over like a few other like TSA, and this was like right after 9/11 too, I think. This was like maybe a few years after. And they like called over other people, and they're all just kind of like looking at the monitor like, what is this? And then they like pull the bag out, they call us over, and they're like, is this your bag? And we're like, yeah, is there anything wrong? And they're like, has it been out of your sight or anything like that? And we're like, not that we know of. Why? What's going on? And they're like, well, I think there might be something inside it. So they like unzipped it and opened it up, and like literally right on top of everything, front and center, is this giant knife. And it was my mom's bag, and I'm traveling with her. I'm a minor at the time, so obviously I'm not going to suffer any consequences here. So, and like it being my mom, they knew it was just kind of an honest mistake, and it was not something that was like, any sort of threat or anything like that. But they did have to confiscate the knife, and luckily they, after they just took it away, they were like, okay, like it's fine, you can still go board your flight and stuff.
But I got a letter saying that I was on the watch list, and I made an appeal.
You actually got a letter about that?
Yes.
What?
So
Like the terrorist watches Judy Rose?
I made an appeal, and so they did finally take me off of it. So, yeah, that's my crazy
Until the next
story.
time we travel together.
Yes.
Just wait.
Okay, with that we'll end, and next time I think I'll do something just to help everybody, single gals, women that are married, just some tips on being a wife.